Hello and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia. I'm your host, Tommy McIntyre Jr. Well, we're going to talk the Philadelphia Eagles making some big splashes during this year's offseason free agency. We got Alshon Jeffrey, big name piece coming in. And we're going to talk Philadelphia Flyers. Unfortunately, they were doing well. They got on a little jump swing, and then they lost their last two, but then picked up a nice win against the Pittsburgh Penguins 4-0. We're talking all that more coming up.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hello and welcome back. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles had a great splash in free agency. It was really great to see them pick up Alshon Jeffrey as well as a guy like Troy Smith out of San Francisco for a cheap deal, and then getting a guy like Warmack, offensive lineman, coming out of Tennessee Titans. But I got a great panel here to start us off this week on the Philadelphia Eagles. Kyle McIntosh, thanks for coming back on to talk some Eagles. Great to have you back. As well as Trevor Gregoric. Really appreciate you coming on to talk some Philadelphia Eagles with us. So let's get right into it, why don't we? We can actually bring up just the free agent graphic of kind of who we were able to bring in this offseason and what Howie Roseman was able to do. And look, Howie Roseman gets a lot of slack in this town, especially for just kind of the way that he handles some things. People are always going to try to blame someone, whether that's him or Jeffrey Lurie, or Lurie giving him the power after, obviously, the Kelly years when they kind of took the power away from him. But I mean, seeing what he was able to do this offseason, bringing a guy like Alshon Jeffrey, one-year deal worth $14 million, and honestly, the guaranteed money is even less. I think it's more closer to 9.5, or actually around 4.5 for like the first half of the year. And then a guy like Troy Smith, who's been on a kind of the last couple of years not doing too well in San Francisco. But then you got a guy in Chance Warmack, who's a first-round pick, coming in a one-year deal to be a nice another guard on a big guard who seems like we're moving towards that type of way on our offensive line. I'll start with you, Kyle. What jumped out at you in this offseason? Was it the Alshon Jeffrey pickup?
It most definitely was that Alshon Jeffrey pickup. As you remember last season, I was always complaining about our receivers, and we didn't really have a good starting receiver option. We threw Jordan Matthews in there as the number one, and clearly he couldn't handle all of the pressure for what it's worth on the field. But Alshon Jeffrey's going to come in there. He's going to be able to mix it up. Even if he had some kind of issues in Chicago, he's going to be on a new team. He seems to be more motivated. He has a younger quarterback who's going to be throwing to him. That's really important, because now that he can trust his quarterback to actually make the throws, because we all know Jay Cutler isn't the best. So he got Carson Wentz. And then he has Torrey Smith to also take some of that pressure. And then Jordan Matthews is going to be able to play slot. Man, I'm really looking forward to what our wide receiver core is going to be able to do next season. Aguilar is going to have more talent surrounding him. He'll be able to learn some things. Hopefully he'll be able to fix his mistakes from last season. I'm really looking forward to it. But, yeah, Alshon Jeffrey is definitely the big acquisition in my book.
And let's get Jeffrey's stats up, why don't we, as we go over to Trevor to talk about him. Really, this guy has been making waves in this league. I mean, you look at his career, 304 receptions, 26 touchdowns, even over the last couple of years, doing it with a guy like Jay Cutler, who gets a lot of scrutiny in the league for not being a great quarterback, really throwing a lot of interceptions. But Trevor, talk about what he can bring to this team, especially with his size and his athleticism, coming to the outside, really helping us, considering the fact that guys like Aguilar and Dorius Green-Beckham have not done the job that the Eagles need on that outside.
Yeah, no, he can bring so much to this team. Just his experience, what he can bring to the other wide receivers and to the offense in general is just super exciting. And the fact that he took less money to come to Philadelphia because he's so excited about Carson Wentz is something that every Eagles fan should be excited about. Carson's bringing in this talent, and it's really exciting to see that. And hopefully it leads to good things. Hopefully guys like Aguilar can learn from these players and hopefully grow, and we can have even more weapons then.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what this team does now with all these wide receivers coming in. A guy like Torrey Smith, who we signed before Alshon Jeffrey. Now, this is a guy who in Baltimore had great success. Obviously, with Joe Flacco, was even able to be part of that Super Bowl winning team. And so he has, I guess you could say, a pedigree of winning. Unfortunately, goes over to San Francisco, just doesn't have that same success. Now, Start you, Kyle. Do you think that's because of the situation he was in, coming in there, especially after a guy like Harbaugh leaves? Kaepernick just is starting to fall apart in terms of his ability to play quarterback. What do you think that a guy like that, does he still have the speed? He says he does in the interviews when he came over to Philadelphia. But do you believe him? Do you think he can come in and be a difference maker on the outside?
You know something, I do trust Howie Roseman in being the general manager again. He's made some really great choices. I don't think he would have went for Torrey Smith if he didn't believe he could produce on the field. When I think of teams with quarterback problems, I do think of teams like San Francisco, Cleveland, that unfortunately they have ruined some talented quarterbacks. People who had opportunities to do well in the league, well, they just couldn't produce on those teams. I don't know if it's coaching issues. They had talent around them sometimes. But yeah, I think Torrey Smith in a much better environment like the Eagles were creating, he's going to have a much better year than all of the years over in San Francisco, because you'll have one quarterback throwing to him the whole time. Because obviously we saw Carson Wentz can play an entire season without getting injured, an entire regular season. And so that's going to be good. That consistency is going to be great. And as long as he can produce the same way he produced in Baltimore with Joe Flacco throwing to him, who was also another really consistent quarterback, I think he's going to do really well. He's going to become a standout receiver again, which is why I'm really glad we have him on a 3-year deal, because we're going to keep him for a while. Alshon is more of the risky pick. We're paying him a lot more. But if we get him going, at least if we lose Jeffrey, we'll still have Smith there. And like I said, consistency, he'll get better. Matthews will be there. He'll improve. Aguilar will be there. He'll learn from all the veterans on the team now. The future's looking pretty good for Matthews.
Yeah.
Sorry, Wentz.
No, I know what you mean. And going, I guess, to the receivers we have on this team, speaking of a Jordan Matthews, now knowing that he's going to be in the slot, that's where his natural position is, Trevor. Talk about what difference that's going to mean to the guys that pretty much I would say Matthews is that guy that could be a great second option. Guys like Aguilar, even guys like Green Beckham, it's still question marks. Will they still be around here? I guess answer that. What does it mean for Matthews, and then what does it mean for guys like Aguilar and Beckham when these new guys come in to be wide receivers?
So for Matthews, I think this is a huge chance for him to truly excel as a wide receiver in the slot. We have one big name wide receiver coming in with Alshon, and Torrey Smith coming in as well, and those are two other weapons that so Matthews might be able to free up some space, boost his stats a little bit. And in terms of Aguilar and Dorial Green Beckham, they're going to have to really perform to stay with this team, and they're going to have to work for their playing time. So hopefully this sense of competition within the wide receiving core can truly just produce something great.
Yeah, I think the competition is something that we've lacked in that receiver department. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, this whole past fall, we were really just talking about how these receivers weren't even catching the ball. I mean, that's really the sad thing to say. But when you have receivers that honestly can't even keep their hands on the ball, when a guy like Carson Wentz, a rookie quarterback that was having success early on but just couldn't rely on his receivers, having a guy like Alshon Jeffrey coming in, who is a proven guy, veteran player in this football league, Kyle, do you think that Carson Wentz now just has more of a reason to have more confidence now on the outside? He was always a guy that had his players back, his teammates back, but now when you actually have proven Pro Bowl caliber player in Alshon Jeffrey coming on the outside, what does that mean for his confidence going into his second year?
I definitely think we're going to see the evolution of Carson Wentz, because a lot of his throws were short throws, kind of towards the middle of the field, and we really couldn't get those big plays downfield, because every time he would try to throw them, it'll be a drop pass, or the receivers wouldn't go fight for it. There was a lot of balls that just were completely lost that could have been caught by all-star receivers, and now that we have one, I expect Wentz to light it up early. He's going to use preseason. He's going to use the first couple of games to get acclimated with those guys. I hope that they go up to North Dakota with him. Even if Alshon Jeffrey is the vet and he's a superstar, he can use that time to build that rapport with Carson Wentz. That's going to be really important to be able to do that. But like I said, yeah, consistency is going to be the greatest thing. Carson Wentz is going to gain that confidence, like you said. He's going to be able to throw those deep balls for people that are actually going to go up, fight, and catch it. And then hopefully Aguilar, Matthews, Green Beckham are going to look at Jeffrey and Smith fight for those balls, and they're going to want to emulate that, so we can have a deep receiver core even when somebody gets injured, because we have been plagued by injuries before, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think going back to, I guess, Wentz just having more confidence, we could talk about the last move they made, which is picking up Warmack, offensive guard. coming in, just really bringing more depth to this offensive line, which is great to see, especially considering the fact that, I mean, that's been a kind of a shaky part of our team these last couple of years, especially when last year when Lane Johnson, let's be honest, when he got suspended for those 10 games, you just saw a big drop-off. And when he came back for those last 4 games, you saw, oh, wow, this team could have probably won a couple more games if we had him on that offensive line. You bring in a guy like Warmack, now you got another big 300-pound lineman on there. Trevor, talk about what this possibly could mean for a guy like Kelsey. It seems like now we're going towards a more line outside of the Chip Kelly years that was more slim, fast guys to just big guys up front. 3rd and 1, you come in and they can have the option now to run it in those short yardage situations. Just speak a little about the philosophy now on the offensive line.
Right. Well, I think this transition to a bigger, stronger line is something that the running backs look for. I think it's even going to boost Carson Wentz's confidence, because if you look back to this past season, their 3rd down, their 3rd and shorts, and even their 4th and shorts, either in the red zone or anywhere on the field, it was really tough to get through the line and to get those 1 or 2 yard gains. So I think with a bigger line, it really just adds the sense of like security to the running backs, and hopefully their confidence boosts, Carson's confidence boosts, and we can just pick up those short, like pivotal plays throughout the game.
And I think looking forward, I guess, especially now into the draft coming up, it's going to be interesting to see where they go first in the draft, especially just considering the fact that it seems like they're going just to put as many options around Carson Wentz. I think they're really like, okay, here's our guy. This is a guy that's a reason why a guy like Alshon Jeffrey wanted to come to the Eagles. Like, oh, I see Carson Wentz as an up-and-coming quarterback. So in terms of that mindset, Kyle, do you think that they're going to go in the draft possibly for another piece for them, possibly a running back? You got guys like McCaffrey out of Stanford, who's a running back. You got Cook out of Florida State, who's a running back. You also have wide receiver there, Williams. Do you think that they'll still go for that type of option, or maybe a cornerback? This is a deep back class. So what do you think? That first pick, 14, where do they go?
You know, I did really want them to go for Williams because our wide receiver core was so bare. I think he would still be a good acquisition, but I think we should probably either trade down the pick and get more value, or we should go for a good corner, because, you know, we lost Nolan Carroll to the Cowboys, so we're already losing one of our starters. I think if we can get like just a really good corner, that'll help, because, you know, the receivers are getting better in the NFC East. The quarterbacks are getting better, with the exception of Eli Manning. But it's going to be important to be able to get that coverage and cover these superstars, because we're going to have Dez Bryant, we're going to have Odell Beckham Jr., and we're going to keep playing these guys, and they're going to keep torching us if we don't have that coverage. So I think a good cornerback is going to be the way to go.
As well as Brandon Marshall now going over to the Giants, so you just added another threat to this receiver corps in the NFC East. Now going to you, Trevor, going off the same point about this draft now, Carson Wentz, it seems like they're just trying to put as many options around him. Do you agree with Kyle in the sense that, I mean, he was a guy that liked Williams in this draft, and now that we get some receivers in Jeffrey, do you think they'll still go wide receiver? Looks like maybe even running back is an option. Where do you see them going early in this draft?
Well, I did like Williams as well. He was a great wide receiver, but I think either bringing in a guy like Christian McCaffrey from Stanford, who's an outstanding running back, either that or going to the cornerback position. Cornerback is something we need. As you just said, Brandon Marshall's the Giants now is just another threat that we need to worry about. So getting a really solid cornerback in this draft could take those worries away slightly, like relieve the pressure on defense. So I think that's probably the most important position we need to fill right now, and we just need confidence in that position.
Yeah, and I think that's something that they're definitely going to go after in this draft. I think many experts have said how deep this class really is in terms of cornerbacks and safeties. But I want to go towards really real quick, just kind of another move that actually happened, an interesting move in this fact that we re-signed Nick Foles. He's coming back to the Eagles. Now this is going back to the quarterback position, a backup role. Obviously, here in Philadelphia is where he had his most success, made the Pro Bowl team the year he made the playoffs, actually was like the MVP of that Pro Bowl that season, but just really never found success after that, really kind of fell off that next year. And then Chase Daniel decided to say, oh, I want to get released. I guess it was a kind of a mutual thing where they said, you want to go. What do you think of the move, Kyle? What do you think it's an interesting way for him to back up? I think he's still a solid backup in this league, so anytime you can bring in a guy that has been around, he seems like a teammate, first type of person. I think him and Wentz should be able to get along for the most part. I mean, him coming in knowing that he's the backup.
I definitely think Foles is a good backup, definitely a good backup. He has the skills because he did do, that legendary season for us. Like it was kind of a fluke, but he still went out there and performed game to game. So definitely that experience that he gained. Now he's playing for a couple different teams. That's going to be really important for just to bring that experience to Carson Wentz. Unfortunately, Chase Daniel was unsatisfied with his placing on the team. I think it's unfortunate that he requested to be released. I think he should have stayed on the team because obviously we're doing great things. And honestly, he's lost himself a Super Bowl ring because we're going to get one under the Wentz mania. But I definitely think that Foles, he's going to come in, he's going to be able to give advice to Wentz and then again, when Foles was picked up by the coaching administration that Peterson was on before. I think that's really important. He's coachable, and in the event that we do have Wentz go down, I would like to see Foles kind of rip it out again, maybe even earn himself another spot. He'll get a second chance to go 27-2. We'll see. But definitely, I think it's a good thing we have going. Unfortunately, we only have 2 quarterbacks now, but what can you do?
Absolutely. And Trevor, I guess the same question to you. Bringing a guy like Foles, you're always going to need backups in this league. Unfortunately, even Wentz in his first year went down with an injury early on, so you're always going to probably, unfortunately, need some sort of backup help unless you have a guy like Brett Favre that just stays healthy his whole career. But what do you think of the move to bring him back?
Well, I like it. It is unfortunate that Chase Daniels requested to leave, but Nick Foles, who played in Philadelphia, had success in Philadelphia, that's exciting to bring back his experience, his talent, and I would be happy to see him go in if something unfortunately would happen to Carson Wentz. I think he's a solid backup, and I think people should feel really comfortable with him being in that number 2 spot at quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to do it for Eagles Talk. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up, but I really want to thank Kyle McIntyre for coming on, as well as Trevor Gregoric for talking some Eagles for us. It's been a while. We're into this position. We should be back, have a show later this week not this week, but later this semester about the draft coming up in April. But yeah, that's going to do it for us here on for Eagles Talk. We'll be back after this commercial break with some Flyers.
According to statistics, 40 million adults suffer from depression or anxiety. 1 in 4 college students are affected by this as well. You never know who is going through something, so you should always be kind to one another. A little kindness can go a long way. It might even save a life.
LTV News, where the action never stops.
I love watching LTV News. I love watching LTV News every Sunday at 10:30. I love LTV News producer Dave Roberts.
Before I go to class on Monday mornings, I watch LTV News at 8 a.m.
I love watching Kirsten and Callie on LTV News.
Tuesdays at 10, we watch LTV News.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. Well, Philadelphia Flyers, they've had a bumpy road this last half of their season for sure, but they were able to pick up a big win against obviously Pennsylvania rival, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the other day against a 4-0 win, which is huge. So we have to talk about them, of course. But so far, 72 points, still out of the wild card race right now. They're still unfortunately falling. But I brought in a couple special guests to talk about the Flyers. Got Kevin Cook on, as well as Dana Pecor. Really appreciate you coming on to talk some Flyers with us. But let's get right into it. Speak a little about, I guess we'll start with you, Dana, just about the Flyers win against the Penguins. I mean, I think right now they know it's kind of, they have to win these games at this point, and they got to play the best they can do this last stretch of the season.
Yeah, well, definitely. They have to definitely win at least 10 out of their next 13 to even have that chance. And it just kind of comes down to, we're scoring, obviously, 4-0 last night, but it kind of comes down to, is it luck? Are they not good enough? I mean, they're playing okay. Their defense isn't necessarily the problem, and their offense isn't necessarily the problem. The goalies aren't necessarily the problem. It's just kind of, they're just playing okay. So whether or not they're going to get those 10 wins is kind of, we can never hope too much just because we don't really know what this team's deal is. Maybe it just is coming down to the fact that they don't have the talent yet. So, but it's good. The young players are doing well, so that's obviously always great to look forward to for next season. I mean, we still have a chance, but, you never know with the Flyers.
Yeah, and Kevin, I'm going off Dana's point about really where this team is in terms of how we're playing. Is it desperation? What are you kind of looking for at this last stretch? Is it just still the development of these young guys, hoping to see some young players, hopefully these next couple of years, kind of turn into stars, or is it still a push where they can conceivably make these playoffs, even though it's kind of tough now, considering they're kind of off and on these wins and losses?
Yeah, well, with the way that they've been playing in their last couple of games, I know that they lost some games in the middle there. I think they lost 2, and a huge loss to Toronto. But the way that they were playing was much better in the previous games than it had been before that. And you're starting to see those younger players start to play better. I mean, just last night we saw Provorov make a huge play, keep the puck in the zone, and then, little give-go here, then he clears it over to Gostisbehere. Gostisbehere rips a shot, and the puck bounces the Flyers' way right on the Simmons stick and into the back of the net. So that's kind of what you're looking for right now is the puck bouncing their way? And as of last night, it was. The other thing is, obviously, we want these young players to continue to grow and develop. And it's what is most important to this team, because whether they make the playoffs this year isn't the goal. We all know that they're not winning the Cup this year. However, if they make the playoffs this year, they're ahead of schedule, which means that stuff looks better for the future. And if that's the case, then you got to be excited with how this team has responded to what has been a lackadaisical middle of the season for the Flyers.
Yeah, and let's look at Giroux's stats right here, just to kind of talk about a guy that, not really young guy, obviously he's the captain. But Dana, just, speak about him. Obviously, he's a guy that, the team's relied on these past couple of years. Kind of had an off season once again. What do you kind of look for him now? What is his story now for this last half of the season, as well as going into future season as being the captain of this team?
Yeah, well, obviously, like you said, he's captain, so he's always been so relied on heavily just to be that leader. And he's been playing well, better. I kind of think he's a playmaker, and that's what they need. So I think Giroux has definitely stepped up the way he needs to, and hopefully he can continue on that, because again, he is such a leader on the team, and people kind of, the team looks up to him in that way. So.
Yeah, and let's go to the wild card standings just to kind of put us where we are. Obviously, we're still, you got the Islanders right now with 77 points. We're at 72. We still have to jump a couple teams in the Lightning and the Maple Leafs just to get in conversation with not too many games left to play. Obviously, Kevin, you're a guy that doesn't believe it's probably going to happen. But, it's still not out of the stretch yet for them to somehow make the playoffs. What do you see needing to happen? Will they just have to go on this massive win streak probably to get in there?
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to – they just need help from the other teams. I don't think it's going to take a huge, massive win streak, like you're saying, to make the playoffs. With the way that they've been playing in the last couple games, I'm kind of convinced that they are going to play they're going to continue to play that way, and that they can make a push. The only thing is these other teams that are in front of them might continue to play well, and if that's the case, they're not going to make it. So they need those other teams to lose a couple games so we can squeak in there. But with the way that they've been playing lately, if they keep it up, they're going to be pushing for a spot.
All right. I like the positivity. Hopefully the Flyers can get this together. Big win against the Pittsburgh Penguins will obviously boost their confidence. But that's going to do it for Flyers talk. Let's get right into Fast Five, why don't we? And we're going to start with Dana, still on the Flyers. They got another game. tonight, Thursday. I mean, this show's 10:30, so the game's gonna be over by the time this is showing. But you'll know she predicted the game correct. Who do you got in this game?
I got the Flyers, like feeding off of what Kevin said. I think they're gonna push through the rest of the season. So yeah, I said Flyers.
All right.
Got it.
She's won most of the time. She was wrong.
Pretty good.
Only
Just
once
I
she
only
was
got was wrong once.
All right. Let's go to you, Kevin. Let's talk a little Phillies, actually. You got Brock Stosey doing really well in the spring training right now for the Phillies. He's 5 home runs. Do you think he makes the ball club coming up?
This is a tough one. I think that he has a possibility to push for it. If injury happens to Tommy Joseph, he's definitely going to be the starter at first base, I think, on opening day. But he could push for an extra outfield spot because he's absolutely just tearing the cover off the baseball right now.
All right, I like it. And let's go to Dana, March Madness. This is a little not Philly talk, I guess, but in terms of the Final Four, who do you have in your bracket making the Final Four?
My
this
bracket,
year?
I have Duke, Kansas, Arizona, and North Carolina.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go. No Villanova, I guess.
No, I know. I couldn't.
Yeah,
I
that
know,
would've
I
made
know,
sports
I
talk.
know. I'm sorry.
All right, and let's go. Last question. We got Sixers. We didn't talk any Sixers today on the show, but Dario Saric really playing well this last stretch. I think like he's been averaging over 20 points. It seems like for a while now. Just every game he comes in, putting up 20 points, especially on that West Coast road trip. Does he get Rookie of the Year now? Even Joel Embiid said he's the Rookie of the Year. So it's coming out of Philly, it seems.
Joel Embiid is saying that he's going to win the Rookie of the Year, then Dario Saric is probably going to win the Rookie of the Year. That's where I think the NBA is going to vote because he's just been playing unreal in these last couple games.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how the vote kind of goes because I think people want to. I read an article recently about how they still think Joel Embiid deserves it just because of his ridiculous numbers during that time. But I think the way Dario's been playing,
it's going to have to go his
There was
way,
some talk
I agree.
about Jaylen Brown in Boston, and the guy,
No
I mean,
shot.
people
No
are just
shot.
like, they're in this bubble of like the Boston Celtics are really good, so like, oh, we're going to give it to him. But Dario's playing really well, so I think you got to look for him. But I think that's going to do it for Fast Five. That's going to do it for Sports Talk Philadelphia. You can catch us, like I said, 10:30 Thursdays. Please check us out, and as well as you can get us on Sports Talk on YouTube, LaSalle TV Philly. That's our YouTube page. You can get us on LaSalle TV, and you can get it at Sports Talk LTV. That's our new Twitter account, so please look out for that. We post stuff every once in a while on there. And watch Philly sports, because, I mean, obviously you want to stay tuned into the actual stuff we're talking about, because that would be weird to watch a show where you don't know what we're saying. But that's going to do it here. I'm Tommy McIntyre Jr. I want to thank Trevor Gregoric as well as Kyle McIntyre to come on Talk Eagles, Kevin Cook, Dana Pecora talking some Flyers, and please tune in next week. Thank you so much.